Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Ricecast. I am sitting across the table from the doctor, the pastor, Willy Rice. How you feeling today, Pastor?
Doing great. It's good to be with you.
We are in March.
We are, yeah. Exciting time of the year. I think, when you think about a church year, which is, that's my life, our life, the spring around here is fantastic in Florida. We have so many of our winter guests who are back. Many of them couldn't be here last 2 years.
That's right.
In fact, I saw a beautiful Canadian man. He's so friendly. He came up to me. He said, first time back in 2 years. And he would come every year. So it's just great to see those people back. And more and more people who have been away during the whole COVID era are coming back, feeling safe in doing so. And as we move toward Easter, which is about a month away now, it's just a really exciting time of year.
Can I tell a quick podcast story?
Absolutely.
In that vein? Ron and Vivian, longtime podcast listeners, listen every week. Usually Vivian sends me an email responding to the podcast.
Great.
She's usually very supportive.
That's
and just good podcast, whatever. But they listen a long time, so they were finally able to come down, and I got to meet them between one of the services.
They get your autograph or something?
No, I didn't do an autograph, but I just got to. And I thought this was so cool, Pastor. And I've been meaning to share this with you, so we'll do it now with me and you and all of our dozens of listeners. So she said, or her husband says, he says, it was COVID in Canada. There was a lot going on. And he said every Wednesday we would take a trip to the park, me and Vivian, and we would get set up and lay our blanket out, and we would listen to the Ricecast.
Oh, that's great.
Together
That's
in
great.
Canada. And I was like, that's pretty neat that we
great.
were a little part of their week for the last several years. So shouts out to Ron and Vivian.
Ron and Vivian, great to have you back down in Clearwater.
They're back. They're here. I got
Fantastic.
to see them.
Yeah.
So that is cool. That is great. We're so happy to see them. It's a fun time around here. With Easter coming up, we have all that information getting ready to drop. We were just been planning it this week, so that is all very exciting. It's March Madness season, Pastor.
Basketball, that's right. Yep. Florida Gators play tomorrow.
Here, right? Aren't they in
They're
Tampa?
in Tampa.
Yeah.
I do not have any tickets, but in case someone's listening. But I'm not sure I could go anyway. But we got a lot happening. But they do play, and they're very much a bubble. What they know, I don't know if you know this. It's called a bubble team, which means you're kind of so-so, and you're hoping the bubble could break and you're out of the tournament. So. They're a bubble team.
Yeah. And I'm not a diehard Gator. I've never made any inclination to be. But it feels to me, my friends who are Gator fans, maybe it's just time to end this sports season for the Gators and restart next year.
Let's unplug it.
Unplug it, plug it back in,
shot. Yeah.
And we'll restart it. This just hadn't been the one. Sometimes you don't want to drag it out.
Seems like longer. That's been the decade. But anyway,
But yeah, March Madness is fun. I love the 2 days. Those first 2 days.
That's a fun tournament because it's the first weekend is the craziest.
Yes.
And that's where you have these wild upsets.
Right.
Now, if you look at who ends up in the Final 8, Final 4, it's usually Cinderella has gone home by
then. That's right.
And it usually ends up being some of the top, 4 to 8 to 10 teams. And 4 of them happen to make it. But the first weekend is crazy. Number 14 can knock off number 3, and that's what you see on TV, and they had a buzzer beater at the end of the game.
Yeah.
So it really makes that tournament, it's very unique in that sense. And those first 2 games, of course, the Thursday and Friday, at least they started shifting the format. But used to be Thursday and Friday were the games, and so people would be at work watching them on computer, or they go home, or they put them on.
Right.
I would never do that, of course. But other people do
me neither.
I know,
Pastor. When you walk by my office that Thursday, I am hard at work. I'm looking intently at the computer screen, but I'm working.
But hard at work, unless Gators are playing or something, then I might turn it in.
There we go.
But anyway, it's a lot of fun those 2 days, and that'll be next week, I guess. Next week,
I think it starts next week.
Yeah, because the conference tournaments are this week. The SEC tournament is in town. Welcome to all the. Here's the thing about the SEC tournament.
Yeah,
in case you didn't know this, I've been a couple of times. By just kind of accident. Once it used to be in Birmingham. I was there once. It was in Nashville. It's a fun event to go to. I wish I didn't have anything else going on. We would try to slip over there, but it's Kentucky fans. It basically is Kentucky fans who love basketball and everyone else. So when you go into an SEC tournament, like 70% of it is Kentucky fans, and then you have this smattering of other people. So it really does not matter whether it's Tampa or Nashville or wherever. Yeah. It's Kentucky South. So to all the Kentucky fans, I have many Kentucky friends. To all the Kentucky fans who are headed to Tampa, we welcome you. Yeah. Love to have you here Sunday wearing your Kentucky gear.
Right. Yeah. That's all welcome. People don't know that, but Tampa does usually host the SEC. We've hosted rounds of the tournament before, the big tournament. So it's fun time. Fun time. Hopefully, if you're filling out a bracket in your office. My wife has beat me in the bracket several times.
Well, the thing about the bracket is, like, my grandchildren fill out a bracket. Right. They like the sound of the name of the mascot. And typically they will do better than people who profess to know a little bit about basketball. So you can win this tournament. Typically, you pick the higher seeded teams, but you mix it up a little bit, and you have a good chance to win.
That's usually my thing. I get too deep in it.
Oh, okay.
No, I get too deep in it. Oh, yeah. And I'm convinced this 13 seed.
Yeah, and then they lose by 30 points.
Arizona Tech. No one's ever heard of this school, but I watched it. I listened to a podcast, guys. I'm telling you. And they're out in the first round. But it's fun. That's what we got going on. Here at Calvary, we had, this last weekend was really fun. We had the CCHS worship team leading.
Here at Clearwater,
Here at Clearwater, yes. And online. You know, I'm always online. We had a really special moment with Joey and Yulia. That felt very emotional. Even just talking with them before the service, which nobody would have been able to see, but you just can see. It's this tension of we're so happy to have them here. We feel like there's a sense of relief, but with someone like Yulia's family is still over there, it's such a.
As those of you listen know, Joey's a kid who grew up at Calvary. His family, long-standing Calvary family. And Joey went to Ukraine on a mission trip, fell in love with the country, moved there, has been involved in church planning and church work there, and, of course, met and fell in love with Yulia, married her. They have two beautiful Ukrainian children. So there really are Calvary / Ukraine. They are, the intersection of Calvary and Ukraine. Yeah. It's a representation of our ministry and our love for that country. And Yulia, of course, is Ukrainian, and she has family, extended family there. And to see the pain, to see the anxiety, that's really very, very moving. And, again, it makes you hate this war all the more.
We have set up, I think this is a good thing we'll put in the link, because I've heard from some of you messaging and asking. We talked about this some in the last podcast that was all kind of dedicated to Ukraine and the situation over there. But we have set up a giving link on our site. That's that now you can, if you want to give, you want to support. We have that set up now, so we'll put that in the link of the podcast if you want to do that. And we just we beseech you, continue to pray for because that's what it really was. You're looking at Joey and Yulia, and you're like, we're so happy to be a safe place for them to go, but you're in that moment knowing there's just thousands of families that don't have a safe place to go. They're going into some country. They are refugees now, wherever they are, for however long they're going to be there. So continue to pray for them there, and we'll put that link in there.
Yeah, we will have that link for people to give to support, as you said. And again, this is a long haul. So we don't have to, you don't have to give yesterday necessarily. But we will have that opportunity for you to give, and we look forward to ways in which Calvary can support those who are suffering.
So that was just a special weekend. We continued in our Revelation series. Again, and we always put the link to last week's sermon and service in the podcast description. If you missed it, it was a special week continuing on in Revelation. But I'm going to take a little detour from that just for now. We've talked about that, and again, I encourage you to get. Let's pause there. This coming week, what are we reading in Revelation?
Revelation 12 is the text we're doing this week. And we're just one chapter, and it's a great chapter. It's like we've talked about how windows open in Revelation. This is a new window opening. After you reached kind of a climax in Revelation 11, now there's new window opens. And so the message this Sunday, the war to end all wars, Revelation 12.
And I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a dragon involved.
There is a dragon.
That's all I can say.
Which you can't say most of the time in a sermon, but there is a dragon involved. Not a physical dragon on the platform, but one in the story.
We tried, but we just couldn't pull it off in time. So Revelation 12, that's what you're reading. Okay, so that's great. Again, get caught up on the series if you've missed some. But there was some news that has come out. We've been sharing it with our church family. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. I'm sure you're getting a lot of questions. We're getting a lot of questions, a lot of thoughts. And it is that this is the first Ricecast we've done with a Southern Baptist Convention presidential nominee, and it is not me. It is you, Pastor Willy. You have been nominated for the office of the president of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Yep, technically to be nominated.
Yep,
that happens at the convention. But that announcement has been made and, comes about after a couple of weeks behind the scenes of wrestling with it, praying with it. It's, yes, it is quite an honor to be in this situation. It's a little humbling and a little overwhelming. But we just have a sense that this is the right thing to do, the right time to try. And, who knows what will happen? We don't know what will happen. And we trust the Lord and his people with the results of that. Mm-hmm. But it did just seem in the providence of God that this was the right time to agree to allow this to happen.
So maybe you brought something up there I think might be even a good place to start. Let's talk about the very function of this. So you said you're nominated officially at the annual meeting, which will be this summer in Anaheim in June, if I have that date.
That's correct.
June, right? So at that point you'll be nominated, and that's when all the voting happens, and that's kind of when the whole thing will go down. Is that correct?
That's correct. The Southern Baptist polity is a little bit unique. And it's confusing for a reason. If you're not in it and you come from other church backgrounds, there's a lot of people at Calvary are from different variety of backgrounds. And even if you've been Southern Baptist all your life, unless you've kind of been in the inner workings of it, it can seem confusing. The Southern Baptist Convention is technically the gathering that happens in June, where you have these messengers from all these churches who are cooperating with Southern Baptist missions, are allowed to send a certain number of messengers, and they gather at an annual meeting and they convene, and that is the Southern Baptist Convention when they gather. And so the role of president is to moderate. There's a couple key roles, but the big thing is to moderate over that meeting, to lead that meeting. You have a year term, so if you're elected, you lead the next year's meeting, and there is a possibility, according to the Bible, of being reelected. So oftentimes, this is one of the rare exceptions to that. But oftentimes, and most of the time, the person is reelected and serves a second term.
Right. So then again, some questions might come in. Okay, so he's been nominated. He's going to be nominated. When is this all going down? It goes down in the summer. Then if, let's say that goes down, like I'm sure everyone here at Calvary hopes it does, and that you are named president, what will that look like? What will it look like, your role here at Calvary? How will that impact your role here at Calvary?
Well, that's a great question, and a lot of it, we'll learn as we go. It's one of those things you can hear about, and people who have served in the role, but until you do it, it's, you haven't ever really done it. Mm-hmm. You can watch people jump off the high board, the high dive board, and you go, well, they survived, or they didn't survive in some cases, or barely survived in some cases.
Yeah.
But it's another thing to get up on there yourself and go, okay, what is it like doing this? But here's the first thing we've tried to communicate to our people at Calvary, and we may have some Southern Baptist friends listening into this now, but to our people, we've tried to communicate, I'm not leaving as the pastor. I think that's the first thing. I had a lot of people say something Sunday. That's not what this role is. It's not a, you don't leave a pastorate. You don't get paid for it, in case anybody's wondering. That doesn't happen. It's something that you do from another place of ministry or service. So I would do it as the pastor of Calvary. You don't leave the church. Now, there are some obligations through the years. Obviously, there are some appointments that the president can make that can be very pivotal in the life of the convention. They're very important appointments. And, you have a kind of, if you will, bully pulpit. You have a platform to speak and to try to exercise influence. So oftentimes the president of the Southern Baptist Convention in the past has had many speaking opportunities that come up just because he is the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, media opportunities and so forth. So those things may come up, and certainly that's going to be a challenge for us. It's sure a challenge for anybody. As I told some of our leaders when we were talking about it, my own philosophy on that is you reach a certain point where you really can't work harder. I know everybody goes, well, you can work a little harder. Everybody can work a lot. Well, everybody can work a little harder for a few days, but if you work hard, you find a sustainable pace. You have to work smarter at some point because there's just very little margin to be gaining. Well, I'll just get up an hour early or stay up an hour later. Well, you can do that for 3 weeks, but that's hard to maintain. What you have to do is work smarter. And I'm grateful that here at Calvary we have a very good team in place. Our senior team particularly is very strong. So we have very good congregational leaders in place. And we're in a good place in that. Obviously, there are always challenges in church life, and we will have our own challenges. And we're dealing with challenges now. We'll have challenges tomorrow. That doesn't stop. But we do have really good leaders around. And so my commitment would be that for the average member at Calvary, they, I hope, wouldn't see me gone all that much. They might, that most Sundays I'm still going to be there. It might be a few that would be a little different than normal, but mostly they would just, he's still here on Sunday. But I think it would be the people who are here during the week. They might notice, hey, we have to have some different rhythms. It's a little harder to set some things up. But we're still going to try. My most important role in my life, as a minister of the gospel, obviously beyond being a husband and a father, my most important role is to be the pastor of this church, and that's certainly going to remain a priority.
Well, thank you for sharing all that, and I think that's very helpful especially for our church family who sees this and wonder what might happen. I wonder, there might be another group of people. I know some of these people are in my life, and as this news has come out, they've asked me this question, so I'll pass it on to you, which is to some variation a question that goes a bit like this. Why would he want to do that? Because it certainly seems that it's maybe in this moment, it's not, like you said, this isn't like some financial benefit. What is it that interests you here? Why would you want to do that?
It's a great question, and you really begin to question the emotional health of someone who wants to do it at times. I said about a role one time, I said it's kind of like an IQ test. If somebody wants to do it, you fail. It's like if you want to do it, we don't want you to do it.
Right.
It is a great question. One, I love Southern Baptists. I mean, I really do. I know we live in what a lot of people think is kind of a post-denominational age. Denominational labels and mean less in my lifetime than they did maybe in my parents' or grandparents' lifetime. Denominational loyalty it doesn't mean anything in the way it once did. It once was if you were a Baptist, you got to know we're a Baptist all your life. Like if you moved, you went to the Baptist. You didn't ask, hey, show me a good church. You said, where's the Baptist church? Because that's where you were going, even if it wasn't the best church in town. That's just who you were. Nowadays, I think among a broader spectrum of evangelicals, that is far less. I mean, I'm a Baptist kid all my life. That's probably the way I would still act. But I think we did a survey here at Calvary. We've done it twice. And both times the number was north of 70% of the members at Calvary had come from a non-Baptist background.
Oh, wow.
That's just because of the nature of Florida in our area. They come from all over. We have people who are this, that, and the other, and some who had no affiliations. And, we have a lot of people from the north who retire here from Canada. So they may have different – they come because we preach the Bible. They come because they view us as a Bible-preaching church. And then so we explain, we have to kind of explain for people who join our church, okay, this is what our Baptist network is about. And usually when you explain it, they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. They see the theological distinctives. They understand that. They're drawn to that. And when they see also that this is, from a practical standpoint, how we do missions. It's how we fund our global missions network. They understand that. So even if they're not particularly from a Baptist background, they go, well, you got to be involved in missions globally, so this is the way that we do that. And so why would I do this? Well, because I do love Southern Baptists. Every church I've ever been a part of has been Southern Baptist. I go back a couple of generations on my mother's side, and I went to Southern Baptist College, a Southern Baptist Seminary. And I do love our cooperative work. I love, our missions is heavily invested in our partnership with the International Mission Board. Dr. Paul Colton, who's on our staff, served as an international missionary for 7 years. And our international work, we partner as much as we can, and which is to a great degree with our Southern Baptist missionaries around the world.
Yeah.
Our church planting efforts are through our SIN network. Calvary gave over $500,000 last year to our cooperative mission program, and typically does that the last several years. And when you add up all of our mission expenses, it's I don't know that it's over $1 million, but it's pushing up there when you start adding in all the things that we do, all the investments in church planting and so on and so forth. So Calvary spends a lot of money through our missional network. I care about it. And I care about it. I care that what we stand for. I care about our health. I care about what we believe in. And when in the providence of God and in the timing of circumstances, those two things, I think, go together. They're not mutually exclusive. But in the providence of God, when the opportunity comes and people that you respect and love and appreciate are saying, hey, this is your time. We need you to step up and provide leadership right now. It's almost like you feel like it's your duty. It's like, okay, if Baptist people feel like I should lead them in this moment, then who am I to say no? Now, it goes beyond that a little bit. I have prayed. Cheryl and I did pray, and I have felt the Lord's peace about taking this step. And there's been some moments, between me and the Lord that can stay right there, between me and the Lord. That's just Him working on my heart. But my disposition at this point is, hey, if I can serve and help in this moment, then I'm willing to serve and help in this moment, and humbled by the fact that anybody thinks that I could make a strategic difference in this way. I'm humbled by that, really. And I would just, I'm going to put that in the hands of God and Southern Baptist people. And, whatever happens, this is my faith family. This is my faith tribe. This is kind of how we do our missions. That ain't going to change after June. People at Calvary wondering, well, if it doesn't happen, somebody else, we're going to be mad. No, we might, you put yourself out there or something like this, sure, you might be disappointed for a day. I'll be fine. I'll come home and, still married to the same woman and live in the same house and have the same friends and got the same grandkids, and I get to live in Clearwater, Florida, and goodness. So God's been good to me, brother.
Yeah.
I don't have any complaints. He doesn't owe me anything. Southern Baptists don't owe me anything. This is an opportunity to serve. If I get the opportunity to serve, I will, and then we'll try to do the best we can. But that's how we're viewing this.
Thank you for sharing that, and I have a question I want to go into after that. But firstly, because I do think this was another point of maybe some questions, you talked about the you're going to be nominated process. That's not that's instigated by who would instigate something like that?
Well, any messenger can nominate someone.
Okay.
So even at the last minute, a messenger, duly elected messenger, can stand up and nominate whoever. As long as that I think the Bible, they have to be a member of a cooperating Southern Baptist church. So anybody can nominate anybody, and sometimes at the last minute it does happen.
Yeah.
I mean, the night before somebody go, well, I want to nominate Jim or Bob or Fred or whoever. I'm making those names up, by the way. But somebody.
I would never nominate Fred. We all know Fred, and that is not the right spot for him.
So that can happen. The process is someone will nominate. What has happened here, obviously, is over a period. And by the way, some have questioned how quick it came out. It's a fair question, and I think even some critics out there have said, "Well, it looks awful orchestrated. It looks awful quick." It's as simple as this. I mean, you're giving us way too much credit if you think there's some clandestine, plan. It's as simple as this. A bunch of people, including me, knew that the current president, Ed Litton, was really weighing out whether or not he would seek re-election. And there's some reasons for that. If you followed this story, you would know those reasons. And I knew he was weighing it out. Ed is a friend. I knew he was weighing that out. I talked to him. I talked to a number of people. A lot, people talk. Mm-hmm. We have phones, and if you're friends with people, you talk. And so I think it certainly wasn't me. It wasn't like top secret information. I think there were a number of people who knew, hey, Ed was really wrestling with whether or not he would run for re-election.
Okay.
That led to other conversations. Mm-hmm. Obviously, people are going to, well, if this, then what?
Yeah.
And so that led to conversations, again, with people that I know and respect and love, which kind of went along the lines of, if that happens, then this should happen. Or if this happens, then you would think about it. And out of conversations, mm-hmm. it became apparent, it's kind of like you can see something coming at you ways down the road, and you don't know what to do. But it became apparent after a couple conversations with people that I love and respect that people I love and respect and value were saying, you should do this. We would support you if you did this. And the man who's going to nominate me is a brother and a friend, Clint Presley. He's the pastor of a great church in Charlotte, North Carolina, Hickory Grove Baptist Church. Clint and I talked a couple of times. And Clint was one of the ones that kind of started talking about this. And a couple other brothers. Anyway, out of all that conversation, there is, hey, we think you ought to do this if that happens. So when it was announced, then we were ready. We had a brief amount of time, honestly, but it wasn't that we hadn't been thinking about it. Yeah. We had been thinking about it. We had been praying about it. I didn't know what was going to happen.
Right.
But when we were told, then obviously, okay, now you got it gets serious. But I had already thought about it. I'd already prayed about it. It was, if this happens, then we would respond in this way. And then we were poised to respond pretty quickly at that moment.
So when to the first question, thank you for giving some clarity on that, because I know there was some questions on that. To the first point, though, you were talking about the seat and why it's so important to you, why it means so much to you. I think is obvious and clear by what you said. But I think there is something interesting about this moment. I mean, this is certainly an interesting. There's particular challenges to whether it's you or whether someone else who becomes the SBC president this summer. That this moment has that maybe some other everybody's going to have their own challenges, I'm sure, in that seat, whenever they hold it. But when you think about this moment, when you think about the challenges facing, I guess that's the best way to form the question. What are the biggest challenges facing the next president of the Southern Baptist Convention?
Well, you're right. Every moment has its challenges. Mm-hmm. And just a little history here. I grew up going to Southern Baptist conventions in the 1980s in what became known as the days of what became known as the conservative resurgence. And we'd have to do a whole podcast on that. People know what I'm talking about, But it was a very pivotal time, and the SBC president played an extremely pivotal role in those moments. That was and some of my greatest heroes of the faith, guys that I don't even think my name belongs in the same conversation. I mean that. I'm not trying to be falsely humble. But when I look at people who served in the 80s, you're talking about names like Adrian Rogers, and you're talking about Charles Stanley, and guys like that. There are a number of them. That literally served at a critical moment to meet, I think, an important need in the Southern Baptist Convention. Obviously, every moment has its unique challenges. We are in another unique challenge. I don't think it is the same moment at all. It's a much different kind of moment. But we are in a moment, it's similar in this. There's a lot of division right now. And we kind of briefed our people on this because a lot of people, just if you don't live in that world, you don't know that world. Maybe at once in a while you see a story floating around, but I don't think most of the people at Calvary are on social media looking at Southern Baptist stuff.
Sure,
at least I hope not. But other people do know the world quite well. It's been a season of conflict, and I think it would be overly simplistic to put your finger on any one reason. There have been a number of. It's almost been a perfect storm of things that have hit in the last 3 or 4 years. And when you look at the issues that have hit and you combine it with the atmosphere of tribalism that is happening culturally, and you add it to social media, and not trying to make social media an easy whipping boy here, but I am trying to say that social media exacerbates tension and division. It creates platforms where loud voices gain attention. And so this is just added to this this idea of division and personal attacks and so forth. It grieves me. As somebody who loves this faith family, it grieves me. And one of the things I would say is I don't think it's the real world. It's kind of like it was. You would always see these things happening and people squawking on social media and back and forth and back and forth. And then you get to the actual meeting and there's pastors and friends and it's like a big family reunion. You want to go, I thought everybody was mad at everybody.
Yeah,
everybody's happy and everybody's excited. And by the way, when you look at Southern Baptist giving, it's going up. We're seeing record levels in cooperative program giving, which is our mission strategy, record levels in like Annie Armstrong giving. Just you're seeing people actually be very invested. So it's almost like it's a disconnect. It's this what you see on social media and then what you see in reality. But I don't think social media is completely fake either. There is something going on, and clearly there has been strife and division over a couple of issues. So if you ask me what the need of the hour is, that's all a way of saying what is the need of the hour. The need of the hour is, I think, healing. And when I say healing, I don't mean hey, we take our foot off the pedal in our mission strategy and we just look internal for. Now, I'm not saying that at all. I think we need pedal to the metal in our church planning, missionary sending, and lots of things that are happening. I don't mean passive. I mean active. But I do pray for a time of healing. I think we need to back away from the unhealthy discourse, the unhealthy strife, the personal attacks that have even occurred, and this is on a variety of fronts.
Yeah.
We just need to stop some of that. All we're really doing is harming our gospel witness. We're not really you're not gaining ground. You're not winning friends.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I've said before about arguing on Facebook. I think it convinces very few people. I think what it does tend to do is it tends to inform and inflame people that are already in agreement with you.
Yeah.
And so that when you begin to throw out information, it can inform and sometimes misinform and inflame people that are already in your particular echo chamber. And therefore, it just creates more toxicity. That, to me, I would just hope that listen, I'm not naive. I don't think people are all of a sudden going to, we're all of a sudden going to, everybody behave and everybody, start saying nice things about one another. But I would just hope that a broad consensus of our people would realize, look, there are certain types of discourse. There are certain types of, debate that aren't helpful. They don't mirror the character of Christ. And when our discourse doesn't have the fruit of the Spirit and it looks more like the spirit of this age, something's wrong. So if you ask me, what would your prayer be? I would pray, let's say 2 years from now, if God gave me 2 years to lead, it would be 2 years. I wish there would be a greater sense of health among our fellowship, that let's deal with our problems in ways that don't just inherently inflame distrust and don't just we don't just attack first and find out the truth later. Let's care for one another. Let's show, because you're not really doing any good. You may be informing again and inflaming people who already agree with you, but you're not winning over people who disagree with you. And the worst thing is we're not advancing our mission when we spend time doing that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And our mission is the greatest mission on the face of the earth, to make Jesus known. That's what we need to be known for, not for fighting one another.
And I think that's the phenomenon you're describing. Then when you do get in the same room, when you get in the same place, you realize you said like you used the family reunion imagery. It's so true, because it's like there's that moment where you feel like, your family is this, and this, and then you all sit down to dinner. And we know sometimes those can be contentious as well, but there's also times where you sit down to dinner and you say, boy, we love each other. Boy, man, I love my nieces and nephews. I didn't get along with my sister-in-law for a minute, but at the end of the day, I love my nieces. She loves her kids. We have so much more in common than we do these things that can sort of wedge in and start to balloon and feel so big. So I think that's great. I think
and it's family gatherings that create that, that promote that.
That's right.
And, again, when I say it was a perfect storm, for instance, the convention of 2020 was canceled. Well, that spring, there was a lot of noise going around. And at just that time, convention was canceled, which is the annual meeting when all these pastors gather, all these church leaders gather, and we weren't able to gather. And do I think that had an impact? I absolutely think it had an impact. It was like the noise just kept on building and kept going and going. And look, I also want to say, I think there are issues to debate. I think there are issues to discuss.
Sure.
I think there are issues. I think people have a right to ask questions and say, wait a second, is that going on? And I don't think people are imagining every boogeyman that they may be identifying. I think some of them are real. I think some of the ideologies that Baptist people are maybe concerned about are real. And you go, wait a second, is that infiltrating our seminaries? Is some of our preachers starting to just infiltrate that? Are we moving in a direction I'm not comfortable with? Those are fair questions.
Yeah.
But what I would say, let's start from a place not of attacking one another. Let's start with trust. And then if you learn you can't trust somebody, okay, now I know I can't trust you.
Yeah,
you won't give me a straight answer.
Right.
But wouldn't you want to start from that place? Like, give me a straight answer. How do you feel about these issues? Let's talk about them. So, look, whoever, people think I am or whatever they think I am, they'll draw their own conclusions. But I want to be a person who will shoot straight, answer honestly. There are complex issues. I don't expect everyone agrees on every single thing. I know we don't. In the state, but we ought to be able to handle those things well. In the statement I put out, I said if everything is as important as every other thing, you're not going to have a family, you're not going to have a fellowship or a network. If every issue if how you roll up the toothpaste is as important as adultery in your marriage, no marriage is going to survive.
That's right.
Okay, some things are more important than others. Some are absolutely bedrock commitments. Others are, you know what? We can live with how you deal with the toothpaste, okay? That's, and every marriage understands you start, categorizing issues that way. In Southern Baptist life, we need to be able to do that. These are first-order issues. This is a familiar triage that Al Mohler and others have talked about. But there are first-order issues that are gospel issues. There are second-order issues that are really organizational issues within our denomination. That is, we don't think, that would be like believers' baptism. It's not that we think that if you don't agree with us, you're not a Christian. That's the first-order issue. Who is Jesus? Second-order issue is things that unite us as a denomination.
Yeah.
And those are important issues also. They may not be first-order issues, but they're not unimportant issues.
Yeah.
But then you need to have some issues that are in the third category that are, okay, these are issues where we're going to differ. These are issues where we disagree, but we still work together because we agree on these other things, which are so much more important. So that's where I hope we can get back to, because I think that some people are conflating those and some people are making first-order issues issues that maybe are not first-order issues. And then they're assigning to people motives and beliefs that those people don't deserve, who say, look, no, maybe I misspoke, or maybe you misunderstood me, or maybe I wasn't articulate as I needed to be in a specific situation. But if you ask me straight up, what do I believe? This is what I believe. I will give you the answer. I'm not hiding it. I will tell you what I believe. And you can like it or not like it. Yeah. But please don't say I believe one thing when I'm trying to tell you that's not what I believe.
Right.
That I believe something else.
And that's really where that goes. I know it's just a funny example, but you say the toothpaste in a marriage, and I know for me, there's a couple couples that come to mind that this is – because what it turns into is – he does the toothpaste like this because he knows it drives me crazy. He does this because he doesn't care about me. And and that sounds so silly when you're away from it, but you all know, and maybe you've been in the moment where you start to get a little lost in this little thing that becomes, I'll tell you why they do this. They do this because they know.
I could tell you specific stories, and I avoid them because, again, they happen sometimes in the course of private counseling, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But I have stories that are almost just like that. I mean, just like that. It's just a different thing than the toothpaste. And so I said years ago, I've learned this, probably heard it from somebody, the issue is never the issue. if you're fussing about the toothpaste, the issue isn't the toothpaste. The issue is what's underneath it. You got to dig around and find out what's underneath it. And that's where good counselors can do. They dig around and find out what's really going on here.
Yeah.
Because the issue isn't toothpaste.
Right.
The issue is that you're already aggravated, and if you don't trust one another and you don't think the best about another person, then all of a sudden toothpaste is an issue, or how they clean the house is an issue, or other things. I could give many, many examples. And so I think right now in Southern Baptist life, we have some issues, but we have some issues beneath the issues in terms of a lack of trust, and that's what I would like to be able, if you ask me, what would you like to be able to change? And I know I don't have the power to change it. You just hope, hey, if I had the right voice and make the right decisions and try to treat people in the right way, that maybe we can, you can prayerfully hope God will help you change it. It would be, can we have a better environment? Can we just treat one another better? Could it become just really odd to watch Baptists attacking one another on social media? I'm not against social media. There's a lot of fun things on social media. I've gotten to know people better because of social media.
As someone whose social media is their job, I appreciate you taking
appreciate
the pause to clarify.
Just declaring your department to be an anathema. No, social media can be a wonderful thing. I just think it can be a decidedly unhelpful environment
for sure
to engage in debate, and occasionally you see it done well, but more than occasionally, it becomes an unhelpful environment to have arguments. You say things that you would never say things if you were sitting down and looking at a person.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. And I've seen it on a variety of sides, by the way. This isn't just accusing one group.
Right.
There's a lot of things that I just go, wow, would you say that if you were looking at the person? Would you say that if you were in the room? Do you really believe that about them? And I just want to hope. I want to hope that the overwhelming majority of Baptist people kind of get that and would say, hey, let's figure out how to have a better climate where we don't attack one another just because we disagree, and we find a way to disagree more agreeably because our gospel witness is at stake.
And from that place of trust and a sense of unity, you can take on some of these issues in a more nuanced and a more appropriate way. These real issues that you said, they're real, they're there. But if we're not, how are we going to address them correctly if internally?
You can always tell when someone really cares about the issue because they're willing to listen. They understand some of these issues, there's a degree of nuance. There's occasionally misunderstanding. There's occasionally poor articulation of what they said, but they said it in a way that, it's not what they really are trying to say. And when you love someone and you trust someone, you kind of dig around and get to the heart of it. But on the other hand, you can always tell when someone is just trying to score points. They're just trying to score points. And they're just trying to make a name for themselves. They're trying to become bigger. And I hate to say it, but that's sometimes you see people engage in debates. I just think they want to score points. It's like a big game. It's like a video game, and it's like one of those games where you shoot people down. It's just like that. It's like those people aren't real. I'm just shooting them down. They're a little screen.
Right.
You can tell I don't know anything about video games now because I haven't played in 40 years. But back in the day, we had the little you shot them down, and that's just what they're not like. Those aren't real people. I'm just shooting down planes. Well, guess what? They are real people. They have families. They have ministries. They have feelings. And, again, I'm all for tough debate. There's a time, and I've engaged in it. I'm not afraid of it. There's a time for stern, tough debate. Sometimes you got to draw a line. You got to make a stand, and you got to press the issue because there's some issues. You're either here or you're here. I get it. I'm not afraid of that. Baptists are convictional people. So we can do that. But in drawing those lines, let's not try to turn people who want to be our allies into adversaries because we draw them so narrowly, or we draw them in such a harsh way that if somebody hasn't said it exactly the way we've said it at exactly the moment we've said it, that we somehow, you're over there, and then we attack them, and if they weren't over there, well, we just drove them over there. We just drove them over there. They weren't there, but the way you treated them, they felt more at home over there, so they went over there.
Yeah.
I want to turn, allies into brothers. I don't turn them. Jesus says that. I want brothers to be brothers and allies to be allies. I don't want to turn people who want to be our allies into adversaries. I just don't think that's the way to win any battle.
Right. Yeah. Well, in doing this podcast, I get the opportunity to do what I know a lot of our Calvary family wants to do, which is just sit and chat with you on various topics. So as their representative here, I just want to say how proud we are as a church family of you. I know in being more personally here on staff, being able to see you lead, being able to see you encourage unity, not force unity, but promote it and promote togetherness while also having a clear and convicted vision of where we're going and why we're going there. It is hard for me to imagine a better person for this moment and for this group. So I know, I'll go back to our church family. I know we're all praying for you and whatever comes in these days and weeks and months. I know we're all praying for our network of churches for the health that we all want to see. But we're all very proud of you, Pastor.
Well, you're very kind to say that, and I want to just say that everybody at Calvary that I know that's talked to me, it's just been so encouraging and so overwhelming. And Cheryl and I are very humbled by that. Obviously, it would be a poor, it's a poor pastor if his people weren't going to say, hey, we love you and, think you ought to do this, that, or the other. So I'm very humbled by that. I don't take that for granted. We're gratified by that. We could not do that without a church that was grounded and healthy and supportive. And as I said to our church family, please don't feel like you've got to get into sideshow debates. Don't worry about that. If people say ugly things, or something, just don't worry, or even about our church. And what I've tried to say to our church family is, look, if you've got questions that come up, just talk to a pastor, a congregational leader. If we don't have the answer, we'll get you the answer. We're not trying to hide anything. If you see something that doesn't correspond to what you know to be true in reality, it's probably because it isn't true. And we'll be glad to help you clarify anything that comes up. So please don't worry about that. Pray for me. That's the best thing you can do for us is pray for us and not freak out if you read something in the media that doesn't sound right. Probably isn't right. And then be okay. At the end of the day, when this is over, we want to be just as loving and just as much in love with our network of churches and our fellowship of brothers and sisters as we ever have been. And we're going to be. I'll say to Calvary, we're going to be just as supportive. We're going to be just as grateful to be a part of this network, regardless of what happens. So thank you for all the kindness and all the support, and thank you for praying. And again, as we do, our job is to obey the Lord and do what we think the Lord is leading us to do, and we'll trust Him with the outcome and the results.
Well, thanks for talking more about that, Pastor. And yeah, if you have any questions or anything, don't hesitate to ask. There's a lot of ways to reach out. And we'd love to bring clarity because, I know a lot of people don't know what this all means, and we'd love to just answer any questions you might have. You can always reach out. And we'll be back with another episode of the podcast here soon. Thank you so much for listening. Appreciate everybody who rates and leaves a review on the podcast. That's very helpful to what we're doing here. And we'll be back here soon.